Well, isn't this a surprise? I guess I should have figured you'd come see the boss eventually. What's up? Guarding the front door, mostly. Licking my wounds, too. I keep track of people coming in and out. Slow work, but I'm in no mood to go out into the wasteland anytime soon. It's our main base. Used to be a laundromat, I think. We moved in and started knocking down walls into adjacent buildings.
Later.
This meeting's been some time coming, hasn't it? My name's Ellis Dufresne, and it's good to meet the courier who's helped out Ramirez twice now. I hope you don't mind, I've done my own research on the famous courier from Good Springs. I'd imagine you're sick of the vague answers you've been getting up to this point, so go ahead. There's no more secrets here. Should warn you though, I'm known to jaw a man's ear off. We're convicts and felons, courier. Nothing special about us, save our drive to make something of ourselves. We use the dynamite and blasting powder the warden so graciously granted us. In that respect, it would be accurate to call us powder gangers. What we don't have in common with the more thuggish bands you've met is that we're not interested in shaking down the small towns and caravaneers. That prison break was a fresh start for all of us, and my people aren't squandering it by going raiding. I'm not used to talking about myself, but I'll oblige. I grew up on the streets of New Reno. I had a home, sober parents, and all that jazz, but I still spent a lot of time outside the house. There I saw the rise and fall of the Reno crime families, the Salvatores, the Mordinos, the Bishops, and the Wrights. Hard to believe this was all only 40 years ago. Time passes by. Relatively small crime family who entered the scene in a big way. Don't know how, but they got their hands on genuine laser weaponry. Vaporized anyone who got in their way. Their source must have been short-lived because one day they ran out of those light guns. Fell from power as fast as they rose to it. Got nothing positive to say about them. They lived and died by their monopoly on the drug trade. They were the first to start pushing jet. I think they invented it too. But that story changes every time I hear it. Basically, any time you see some poor soul wasting away on the street corner, dying of jet withdrawal, you can thank the Mordinos. Discovery of a way to treat jet addiction crippled their hold, and once they'd lost their monopoly, the other families smelled blood in the water. I was around for the last of that fighting, where the families tore them up and divvied up the remains. The bishops today are a different breed from the bishops then. The family made its wealth cutting deals with the world around Reno, as orchestrated by their head, a Mr. John Bishop. After he turned up dead, it seemed the end for the family. But one day, some wasteland trekking badass with bishop blood seized power. Apparently, he was some bastard child of one of the bishop women. Anyway, the end result is the old bishop family is long dead. The new one's got the same name, even the same blood, but it's something else. They didn't, and that's what makes them so interesting. Strange thing about the Wrights is that they're an actual family, as in blood relations. That's all they really had going for them. By all accounts, they should have been massacred in a year. But instead, they became one of the big contenders, and the only original family to remain standing or unaltered. All that just through the power of their loyalty to each other. Growing up in Reno taught me a lot. Some of that I used immediately. Other things I didn't realize I learned them until years later. I learned that firepower counts for nothing if you can't sustain the supply. I learned that power through force and subterfuge is fleeting at best. I learned that the nature of an organization is not immutable. And I learned the power of loyalty. What do you want to know? I learned about the big wide world in them schools the Wright family built for the city. Both the world as it was and what we know of it today. Seeing how the powers that be ruined the world left me seething at how power could be abused. And I saw more of that destructive influence in my city. I saw it in every jet-addled street hooker, in every fresh ash pile in shady alleys. I didn't know how to fix it. So one day I figured removing the people causing it would be enough. I set up an ambush for a pack of Mordino enforcers. I knew the men. They'd harass these couple blocks, shake people down. They were genuine bastards, men in love with tormenting the weak. Well, one night they were a little drunk, a little buzzed. While they were howling slurs at a corner beggar, I snuck up behind them and plugged all three with this little .22 I'd saved up for. Done that a year earlier and the Mordinos would have had my head, but their influence had waned. Mr. Bishop seized the opportunity, took over that stretch of turf without their enforcers to protect it. In return, I wasn't killed, but I was turned over to the NCR authorities on charges of murder. It was the first time I'd go to prison, but not the last. That stint was, a 5-year sentence, I believe. The bishops wanted me out of their hair for a while, but nobody mourned those dead enforcers. Thing about prison, though, is it becomes a part of you. I found myself drifting in and out of jail for the next few decades. I could have turned out a very different man if not for the followers. Back when the NCR and the followers saw eye to eye, the followers had a certain degree of influence in public policy. One of the things they were firm on was that the prison's focus should be on rehabilitation, not punishment. They funded construction of libraries in every NCR prison they could find. After relations between the two soured, NCR wasn't able to get rid of the libraries. They'd brought too much goodwill for any elected official to dare stand up against them. A man has to find something to do in lockup, so I'd spend hours in the libraries of the prisons I'd end up in. Learned a lot from those yellowed pages. History, logistics, economics. Guess I figured I'd run a business someday. Never gonna happen the way I'd keep violating parole and end up arrested in new towns. It's all I knew how to do, really. Eventually, my trails led to the Mojave, where the NCR found me again and arrested me for parole violation. NCRCF, as a more newly established prison, was under no obligation to have a library. My spirit faded. Started to think this would be the path my life took forever, but then Cook happened. Not at first, that's for sure. At first, I just thought about finding a safe, quiet place for my friends to settle down in, far away from NCR eyes. But the more cons we met, the more that joined us. I started reflecting on just how much manpower we really had. This level of manpower could make or break a town. I started thinking, in another life I would have become a warlord. But I thought back to all I learned from school, from libraries, to the righteous anger that had left me so long ago. I knew then that I could never become another source of misery for this world. By the time we reached Westside, I knew. Because it was the only clothing we had at first. We made do by modifying and reinforcing it. By now I like to imagine it's become a symbol of how us powder gangers have turned our lives around through our own efforts. A reminder of how the vaunted penal system was never able to accomplish that. No, a lot of my men have no love for the NCR, but those that wanted to take direct violent action against them left with Cook or turned to banditry. My goal for my powder militia is to become a significant enough faction in the outer Vegas area that the NCR can't just dismiss us out of hand. A war with the NCR is a war we can't win, so our best bet is to integrate ourselves with the local communities. At that point, NCR would have to meet us at the bargaining table. They wouldn't be able to come arrest us without drawing open ire from a bunch of towns. I did warn you that I was a conversationalist. Ask away. Started out as just me and my friends. It's easier to make your way in lockup if you have people to back you up. So there were a bunch of little cliques. Mind, we didn't just team up to beat down cocky upstarts. We passed the time together. Sang songs while working on the chain gang, played card games using decks we snuck in, made up stories to amuse ourselves during lunch block. I considered them friends, true and blue, and they felt the same way back. No, he came later, after the riot. Some of them are still around out in the field. Others decided to pack up and go back west after a while. Few are dead now. That's just how the wasteland is. Well, as our sentences stretched down, we figured we might as well make the general atmosphere a little less oppressive. Started doing little favors for other inmates, keeping them safe from psychos like Scrambler. It was only basic human decency, but I suppose that's worth more than gold behind those bars. Then, of course, the Big Bang. Cook orchestrated a big riot, freeing us all. Ask away. I wasn't in Cook's plan, if that's what you're asking. If you're asking whether I joined once I realized what was happening, well, a man will go to any length for the sake of his freedom. When the smoke cleared and the dust settled, I rounded up my friends and whatever armaments they scrounged up. My friends and I started making our way north. Some of the inmates, ones we'd helped out, saw us start to leave and threw their lot in with us. This was before that pack of deathclaws moved into the quarry, so passage through the I-15 was easy enough if you steered clear of Black Mountain. We didn't have a specific destination in mind, and beyond any safe settlement that was willing to take us. Along the way, we asked any powder gainer crew we came across to join us. That's how we met Ramirez. By the time we reached Westside, we had enough men to outclass the Westside militia. Instead of adding to the woes of the Mojave, however, we came to them with an offer of friendship. Etienne and I are both Reno. He was willing to vouch for me. Once the militia wasn't worried we robbed them blind and burned down the town, they started thinking about how useful an allied militia would be in keeping the peace. We were given this old laundromat to serve as our base. I did warn you that I was a conversationalist. What do you want to know? Well, technically we call ourselves a powder militia, but that name's essentially interchangeable with powder gang for most folk. Like I said, if all a powder ganger is an ex-convict with access to dynamite, then we certainly qualify. That, and I'm not interested in running away from my past. Our past as cons does not devalue our worth as human beings. It does not take from the choices we make now. Most, but not all. Some locals have asked to join up. Ramirez also asked his old mercenary contacts to join up, and they obliged. I'm recruiting because any organization needs fresh blood to keep going. But I suspect you mean to ask, why do I bother recruiting from the powder gangs now that I'm already settled here? I believe in the second chance that was afforded to me, and I consider it a tragic waste to have my peers throw it away to die in the wastes. I can't force them to make that choice, but I can make sure they have the option. What makes a good man, Courier? Does he need to actively seek out ways to help others? Does he simply help out his community in any way he can? Or is it simply a man who respects others' boundaries? I don't know if I can turn people good, but I can give these men a benefit to the community, and I can make this community their home. We don't have much conflict with the smaller crews running around the Mojave. Part of that is the grudging respect they have for us, I imagine. Another part is that we have superior numbers and firepower. The only crew that's really given us grief has been Eddie's faction, holed up in that prison. Eddie hates that we want something beyond robbing caravans and acting like warlords. It erodes his power base if his men believe that they have a choice beyond staying with him. Westside is far enough removed from the area around the prison that they don't have any personal experience with the powder gangs. That means they don't have the personal grudges other towns like Good Springs, Prim, and Sloan have. They're also not too fond of NCR, so the fact that we're not friends ourselves with the Republic serves as common ground. That's not to say we were welcomed with open arms, but we've since proven our worth many times over. Because it's the only place that would take us. Most towns near the correctional facility are a no-go. I felt that Novak was too far east, too close to Legion territory. I especially feel validated in that opinion after what happened in Nipton. Freeside sees too much NCR traffic, and the Kings wouldn't want more outsiders taking up space there besides. That left here or North Vegas Square, and until recently the square's de facto lawkeeper didn't want us around at all. Of course, I want this group to be legitimate. The way Eddie runs the gang, the way the smaller crews out there operate, there's no future there. Within a generation or two, there'll be nothing left of them but bad memories. The only path through for us that doesn't end that way is to become something more than a gang. I did warn you that I was a conversationalist. What of them? When I was a young man, I carried a lot of anger towards them. I raged at how efficient they were when it came to catching me, but not crime lords. As an older man, that resentment has faded away. I don't begrudge them for their failures, but I'm not ignorant towards their faults either. The Republic is full of all sorts of folk, and most of them are good people making the wasteland a better, safer place. At the same time, some notable people in charge have lost sight of the importance of human dignity. All in all, I can't deny that they're more powerful than anyone else here. Cooperation is in our best interests. The Legion is exactly the kind of abuse of power that I despised as a young man. They enslave, murder, and rape their way across the wasteland under the veneer of bringing civilization. No, there's no sense of humanity in any of those Legionnaires. We can't hope to fight them off if they win at Hoover Dam, but I guarantee I'll never bow to those monsters. Safe roads. Are you kidding me? You say that like he's of the same importance as NCR and Legion. You wouldn't happen to know something about him the rest of us don't, would you? In any case, Mr. House has paid scarce attention to us. He cares little about the fate of Outer Vegas, so we pay him little heed back. I did warn you that I was a conversationalist. Well, you've come pretty far to get here, so I'm hoping you're willing to go a little further. In that case, I have a search and retrieve job for you. See, whenever a smaller outfit joins up with us, they tell us where they stash their share of dynamite and powder. We send out acquisition teams, and then we use the supplies to assemble munitions and bombs in our assembly workshop. I need you to pick up some of these caches in preparation for the bigger operation we have cooking. Here are their last known locations. Wish you luck on the trail.
Made it here after all. Have to admit, half of me didn't expect you to show up. Glad I was wrong. Any extra jobs we have, we post on the bulletin over there. See if there's anything that catches your interest. Ask them then. We're in a safe place for me to answer. Well, I grew up in Redding. Safe place with enough work if you don't mind mining or cattle ranching. My brother and I wanted something more exciting, though. He ended up becoming a lawman while I got started as a merc working for the Van Graffs. Decided I liked being my own boss more, so I eventually started up my own detail. Long story. You sure you want to hear it? Okay. So one day, I got a job request from my brother. He'd become a sheriff of a small town and was investigating the disappearance of some girls. So he asked for our help in the matter. After some recon, we find out the girls have been recruited into this little cult out on the hills. We spent a week doing recon on their little compound and decided our best bet was to storm the place and drag the girls back to town. Not the most subtle approach, I know, but we're mercs, not negotiators. Turns out that cult had more stones than we counted on, because they started shooting back. We ended up killing a bunch in self-defense. Well, after the dust settled, my brother's deputies took a look around the cult compound. They were up to some real nasty stuff, so NCR were willing to let a lot of things we did slide. They couldn't drop the matter completely, though, so I stepped up and took responsibility for my squad's actions. I don't regret it, and I don't resent Juan or the government for it neither. I accepted the consequences of my mistake. Well, I first met him when we were serving time. I wasn't a part of this outfit, not in the beginning. After the riot, I decided I was better off making off my way alone. I traveled up the highway and made it to this old junction station when I was ambushed by a deathclaw. Alone and with the basic kit I scavenged from the prison, I had no chance. Dufresne and his crew showed up and bailed me out. Made me realize the ex-cons could make for a decent team after all. Well, I was embarrassed to be associated with them at first. Skeptical about our odds of making it. Now I'm thinking we could actually make something of ourselves. We're better off than any other powder gang in the Mojave. No future, no prospects, those guys. Might surprise you that I don't actually hate the NCR. My brother's an NCR sheriff, and I've done work with them, so I know how much good they can do. I also respect that they've built up the economic sector. Trade routes west are a hell of a lot stronger than out here. Dufresne feels we can benefit a lot with cooperating with them, and I agree with his assessment for the most part. As for the Legion, they've brutalized my men, and I take that rather personally. From a practical perspective, Kaiser would never work with us. He'd either have us bend the knee or wipe us out. Mr. House has ignored us so far. Can't blame him. In his eyes, we've probably yet to prove ourselves as an asset or a threat. Good. I was starting to get parched. Talk to me if you want any work.
Hey there. Welcome to our haphazard clinic. I'm the doctor around here. What can I do for you? It's as much of a clinic as I am a doctor. It was some sort of office space that we've repurposed into a place for our people to get their bones reset. Pretty much every room in this compound is repurposed from whatever it was before the war. I was a field medic with my company. I know how to patch up wounds, treat radiation sickness, basic field stuff. But if you've got some itching after a fun night in Vegas, you're better off going to the Followers Clinic. I worked under Ramirez as a merc. He took a bullet for us, so to speak. When he asked us to come out here and join his new operation, we weren't going to leave him hanging. If you need a medic, you know where to find me.
Hello.
What's up? You got it. Give me a shout if you need anything else. It's a shithole. Not like I had many other options, though. At least it's safer than the prison. And I can run an actual shop here. I do. Some of the boys went out on a scavenging run and dug up an old pre-war safe. They couldn't get it open, and before long they had to ditch it after a pack of fiends ran them off. I want you to kill the fiends and bring me the safe's contents. See you.
Sticking around, I see. I've seen better, but I can't complain. As long as I've got guards and walls, I'm happy. We could use some help establishing a source of chems and meds. This little clinic I'm running here won't last long without one. We sent a request for trade to the medical clinic nearby, but never got a response. I also need more training if I'm going to be able to make use of the drugs we'd be getting. Yeah, they sell off spare medicine they have from time to time. We ain't heard anything back about our bulk order, though. Could you go in person and ask around? I'm trying to start a clinic here, not a junkie den. I need training for that. If you come across any medical textbooks, I'd appreciate it if you pass it along to me. Unless you're a trained doctor yourself. Later.
Hey.
Well, shit. Never thought I'd see your ugly mug again. So what brings you to these parts? I know, right? It's a wonder this place doesn't see more tourism with the lovely view and upbeat locals. You'd be surprised how agreeable the promise of trade and medical treatment makes folks. Sure, Hannigan and Carter are nowhere near reputable experts, but they have more experience than any of these locals. The, warm welcome we received aside, things have been calm around here. Crandon and Jules, the closest thing this place has to lawmen, have been good at keeping the locals off our backs. In return, I'm expected to keep my group in line. It's a fair arrangement, and I'm in no mood to test myself against their mettle. North Vegas itself is dusty, run down, and pretty boring, just like the prison. But at least there's no chance of NCR wiping us out here. So yeah, on the whole, it's an improvement. I've been keeping them busy so the boredom doesn't settle in. Repairs on the wall, neighborhood patrols, basic cleanup, stuff like that. They like to complain, but I think the work's been good for them. It's not much, but it's more meaningful than what the NCR was having them do. I was in a gang, a local boss. I'd lead a small crew into various skirmishes against other gangs. We got busted after a pretty big shootout over turf. Lawmen watched the whole fight and cuffed all of us who were still standing afterwards. There's a bunch of small stuff that needs doing. I've written up a list to keep track of everything. The boys found an old generator on a scavenging trip. They lugged it back here and we hooked it up to the electrical system of this old building. We put together a bunch of quick fixes to get it working, but I'd feel a lot better if an actual engineer took a look at it. Some locals went out prospecting and never came back. One of my men, Murdoch, went out looking for him, and he never came back either. I'm not holding out too much hope, but whatever took them needs to be dealt with. Neighborhood safety is a part of our deal with the square. They were last seen scouting around the abandoned houses north of here. Tell me if you find out anything. Yeah, none of us are very good at making a good impression. I figure we're better off improving our rep through action anyway. If one of us helped out the people here, they'd take a better liking to us. Try talking to Crandon and see if he needs anything. Yeah, we need someone to deliver a package containing payment to the Gunrunner's vendor bot. We buy ammo components from them in bulk and resell them to the communities out here. Gunrunners don't mind because their prices are too high for these smaller communities to afford, so it's not like they're losing out on business. Good luck out in the wastes.